Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Friday. I want to start with Tropical Storm Arlene today because I think this is really sort of like meteorologically cool. All right. And right there, here's the tropical storm. And there's a large non-tropical storm. I'll get you a tight view in just a second. But what's happening is that Arlene is actually maintaining its identity and rotating around this non-tropical low. So it was moving north, then northwest, and now it's been racing westward overnight at almost 30 miles an hour. And it looks like it's about to turn southwestward and may wind up eventually just getting absorbed by this large upper air system. That would seem to be the logical thing to happen, but it's just so cool to look at this. You don't see that too often. Here's our weather system in the east that's moving through here, the cold front that produced some showers this morning, and that's moving along. But this thing's just not moving at all. So it's just it is amazing. You don't get a tropical storm that in April. This is only the second time that we've had a tropical storm since the advent of satellites, which goes back to about 1950 or so. So this is a very rare occurrence, and this actually did happen back in 2003 with Tropical Storm Anna that formed between Bermuda and the Azores. So this is the first time in 14 years and only the second time since 1950. All right, so here's the tight view of Arlene right there, and here you can see the latitude, longitude. So we are at, this is 50 west and 40 north. So 40 and 70 is just southeast of Montauk and Cape Cod. So we're talking 50, 26, about 1,200 miles southeast of southeast of Cape Cod. And this is really amazing. Anyway, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time with on that. And I'll show you here on the GFS model, by the way, how it's reflected. And there, here it is. This is the non-tropical system, and this is the tropical system up top, and this is the east coast of the United States. And as we move it along, you see how it just rotates around it. The upper air, the cold core system moves northeast, and Arlene, at least on this model, continues to maintain some sort of separate identity right into Sunday. Now, whether that is in reality the case or not, I don't know. It's amazing enough that you have a tropical system like this, but that system, by the way, still is going to be meandering in the Atlantic for the next 10 days or so before it finally disappears. But getting these patterns in the springtime, you can get these weather systems out in the ocean to just sit there for very, very long periods of time. So let's just backtrack real quick. We'll talk about the weekend here because it looks like, at least here in the Northeast, it's going to wind up being dry for the weekend. Here's that next weather system that's coming out of the southern plains. It stays weak and gets shoved southeastward to the southeast coast of the U.S. Now we're into Monday. So basically, we'll probably see some clouds with this, and clouds also because of a developing onshore flow. But I don't see any rain for the weekend for New Jersey, New York, Long Island, southern New England, eastern Pennsylvania. Now, what the model is doing is eventually it takes this feature and ejects it off the southeast coast and then begins it to lift up northward. So we do get into some of that rain here, developing Monday afternoon and lasting into at least part of into Tuesday, and then finally pulling away Tuesday night into Wednesday. But there's still some semblance of the low. The low actually weakens over time as it moves up the east coast. And the reason why it does this is when we look at the upper air, it's actually pretty interesting what happens here on the upper air, because while you still maintain this, here's that feature here that we're dealing with in terms of the upper air, and it gets shoved southward because there's a bit of a westerly jet just to our north that is kind of staying in control. So it forces that upper air system to go further south rather than lifting up, which was an error that the models had days ago in trying to show this idea that it was going to lift up. Now, what happens over time is that as it finally pivots around and move to the northeast, a ridge is beginning to build here. So this is actually being put into a weakening environment in the upper atmosphere, and the system just kind of opens up and disappears. And then eventually, as we move to the end of next week and into next weekend, you get a big, huge ridge that builds up in the eastern part of the United States. So this is going to be for very, very warm weather once that system gets out of the way. So next weekend could be quite warm indeed with this big ridge building in the east. Okay, so let's look at the west because I know you guys want me to pay attention to the west, and we are going to do that. So I think it works better if the way I did this yesterday, I'm doing it again today, is by keeping both regions separate. Because I know a lot of you, some of you are West Coast focused, and I want to give you your time here. So we're starting off. We've got this low back in West Texas, and you have rain and mountain snows up the Rockies, and that gets ejected eastward. Meanwhile, a couple of weak systems come into the Pacific Northwest, and then early next week we've got a low that comes crashing in, and here's another one that follows on Wednesday. So it looks like from northernmost California up into the northern Rockies, there's going to be a fair amount of rain and snow, and this actually gets into western Colorado Tuesday and Wednesday. Some of those areas have a serious drought situation in parts of the central Rockies. And fire season is going to be coming soon, so this is not a good, this is at least some moisture. And that takes us up into Wednesday and Thursday. There's some more moisture as well. Now, over time, with that ridge building in the east, it's going to mean for troughing in the west. So that's going to continue this parade of weather systems coming in, one after another. Although in terms of intensities, they seem to be more relaxed in nature. I'll just back it up a little bit, and you can see here. This is now Monday, May 1st, and then we'll take you through into May 4th and 5th. So, it looks like there's a lot of action going on in the central Rockies, if this is correct. Of course, we all know that this is fantasy land at this point. So a quick check of the upper air pattern, and we'll put that up there for you. Let me just roll back. All right, so we're starting from present time. So you can see here the west is pretty much the same. Weather system's moving along. You've got the system in the east getting ready to lift up and out. Here's that trough that reestablishes itself in the west, which allows the big ridge to build up in the east. And this is a logical way of things happening. And this is going to mean, this is next weekend now, very, very warm conditions here in the east. And you've got this deep trough that's out in the western part of the United States. Whenever you have if you're going to have a big trough, deep trough someplace, it's got to be offset by a strong ridge someplace else. And, when you have the trough in the east and the ridge in the west, that's when storminess goes on in the eastern part of the United States. And you can see going in through the first week of May, the persistence of that trough in the east. Now, here's something interesting I'm just noticing. In terms of the Atlantic, it does get like it's getting blocky toward the end of this period. Now, whether this is real or not remains to be seen, because we've seen the models do this all the time, and it winds up never happening. But this is a very blocky look here that develops with this upper high that squeezes over the top over Greenland, and this big Atlantic low that develops and actually migrates westward. So if this is correct, this is going to be this would be very cool air for much of the Northeast and even down into the Mid-Atlantic states, where you've got basically trough out in the Rockies, and then this deep upper lobe that's sitting southeast of Nova Scotia. What kind of caught my eye on this, if you watch the progression, I'm just going to go back to this is day 12, Wednesday, May 3rd. The upper low forms out here in the central Atlantic, and then basically kind of migrates back westward. This is kind of a signature of when you have a blocking pattern developing. So that could mean for a cool, wet May, if that's real. Again, I would be very cautious to come to any conclusions about this, but spring has its own way of being interesting, and we can always learn new things from it. By the way, before I go, I just want to share one story with you. We had a firefighter killed yesterday in Queens, William Talley, and the reason why I bring him up, is that um, I met William Talley. He's a friend. He's best friends with a mutual friend, someone who I see every day, and it turns out that he, among other things, was a huge weather geek, and he was an avid reader of my blog, and very much into weather. In fact, he and his friends, he kind of used to do these mock battles between me and other weather people, and got great laughs out of it. And I just wanted to share that story with you, only to just to let you know that it's just sometimes you don't really realize, how you can touch somebody's life in a very odd way, in ways that you don't expect. And I was glad to hear that story very much. He's, from my understanding, he's a terrific guy, and rest in peace. And I just wanted to share that story with all of you. All right, so everybody have a great rest of your Friday, and we'll talk to you this weekend.